Hey, how you doing? Welcome to Youbbuteo, your place on YouTube and the world for everything Subbuteo. No unboxing this week, but I've got loads, look, boxes, loads to unbox. In fact, the place is a mess, but you don't want to know about that. First thing you're all going to say is, Stu, where's your hair? Yeah, lopped it off. Fancied going for a bit of a new look, so that kind of razor, gone. Hair's gone, but new viewers, you don't care about it. This might be the first time you've seen me. If Subbuteo's your thing, if you've stumbled upon this, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, give me thumbs up as well. This video is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I want to talk about figure bases because there's so many in Subbuteo. And I don't mean the professional bases and all these different modern bases that aren't made by Subbuteo. I'm talking pure Subbuteo bases. I want to talk about what ones there are. And I know people have done videos in the past of how much they weigh and how much they this. I just want to talk about it because you might be getting into Subbuteo yourself and you might think, oh, what's a zombie? I see it all the time on Facebook groups. Someone will upload zombie and someone's like, what's a zombie? Or what's a scarecrow? And I thought, you know what? Let's do a video and break it all down. So whether you're new to Subbuteo, whether you're old hat, this video might be of some use for you. You never know. The idea behind it all starts with this picture that I put up on a few Facebook groups the other day, detailing all these bases. Because I've seen other people do pictures like this before and it doesn't detail all of them because there is just that many. So it stems from there. And in the comments, I was told I might be missing one. Maybe. And I'll try and talk about it as we go, all right? Because I don't want to leave it out. But kinda don't think it's missed, but it may be. It may be to some. I am following the Bible of all websites to help us do this. We're following Peter Upton's website because that is the best Subbuteo website ever, right? You'll agree with me on that. If you don't know what it is, head over to it. Best website you will ever see. It's got everything Subbuteo on there. I'll chuck a link in the description in case you don't know exactly what it is. So, shall we get started and talk about all the different types of Subbuteo bases? I'm stroking them down here like you can see them. But here, in a nutshell, is one of every Subbuteo base. That one fell. So, let's start from the very beginning. And this is the one I might not have. But what I'll do, I'll chuck a video down that should be playing now, if I can find it properly, is someone said, I think it was Stephen Kimber, I'm so sorry if I've got your name wrong, it might be Simon Kimber, said in the Subbuteo Collectors Group that the first base was like a Woolworths button, and it was, but I've never seen one in the flesh. The only one I've ever seen is the one that you're seeing playing now, which is the original prototype button. This is Mark Adolf, Peter Adolf's son, the creator of Subbuteo. He has the original button and he dropped it in this video, which is hilarious, but we see it last year at a thing in Tunbridge Wells, and that was awesome. But from that, the first figure and base type he had are these. Very boring cardboard figures. They're thin. They're not the Subbuteo we know. They're known as flats. They're taller, 1947 to about 1950, I suppose. You got flats, and they were cardboard. There was two types. There was types you cut out yourself, and there was other types that you pressed out as well. But they come, you'll see the base is really round. In fact, little segue, most of the figures you'll see here are spinnable, all right? They're all flickable, they're all spin round like all Subbuteo's meant to. But this one is really hard. You'll see, let's compare it to the classic base that you all know. It's a lot more rounder, so it was all about spinning, a lot more less glide. But that is your, I've done a Mark Adolf. That is your original Subbuteo figure, right? By the end of the 50s, they then evolved slightly and they then had a celluloid figure. So very similar, but you'll see it's just as thin, but they're not cardboard anymore, they're celluloid. And they go into the base. The base, very similar again. Not much more to say. They lasted, you could get them all through the 60s as well. Maybe up to the 70s. They always made them, and there's still people that play with these and are very good with them. Yeah. They are what they are. But then Subbuteo moved on to the classic. They moved on to the 0-0 scale figure. Very similar to the one we know and love today. This one here is an early heavyweight. He's got his arms slightly out. These came out in the beginning of the 60s. So them flat ones lasted a good over 10 years. These come out in the early 60s, lasted to the sort of 67, 68 time. But very similar to the classic figure we all know. His arms stretched out. We've got the bigger base that we're used to. Designed by Charles Staddon, who did loads of other military designs. He's quite famous in the world of what he is. But a classic figure before it moved on. So this is the early heavyweight. It then moved on to the classic heavyweight. This is the one, if you're of a certain age, a bit older than me, I'll be honest, if you're one of the older people in the community, this is what you love. All of these figures, apart from the printed flat ones, would have been painted by hand by a Kent housewife. There will be a woman paid outwork, and she was sent thousands and thousands of figures, and she had to paint them at home to try and get a bit of money. They didn't get much. That's why some of the figures are very crude, because they were rushing, they were trying to do everything they could. But this is your main 0-0 heavyweight figure. Now, it's called the heavyweight. We all know it's called the heavyweight. I don't know why it's called the heavyweight. I doubt it was called the heavyweight back then. It was probably just called a classic figure or something. The reason it's called the heavyweight now is because after this, other figures come out and this weighed more and was heavier. These were originally released in about 1967, used and played with until today, produced until about 1980. But side note, this wasn't the only figure they created in the 60s. This wasn't the only heavyweight. There's variations to them. There is variations. And there's 4 of them. In fact, there is kind of 5, because sometimes you would get a rugby figure on a football base. The rugby base is slightly different. It has little dips in it. But you would get a rugby figure on a football base. But I want to stick with the football figures. There's a disclaimer as to why I haven't got that one in here. That's why. But these other heavyweights, you've got, all come out at various times during the 60s. You've got a moulded heavyweight. So the difference between that and the classic heavyweight. So you'll see the classic heavyweight sits on a bar, which then goes into the base. This one is moulded onto his base. Simple, right? So you've got that one. That's your moulded heavyweight. Very similar in style. I can't show it, is it? Very similar in style to the traditional heavyweight, but it's moulded on its base. You've then got the walker. He's walking. He's not on the standard angle. He's got a bit of a walking motion going on. Again, he's moulded onto his base. The walker. Simple. You then had the wing short. If you notice him, he's got wing shorts. His shorts flick out. That is the main difference with that one. Again, moulded onto a base. These figures generally, it's very, very rare. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen one. Other people might have. These figures are really rare unless someone's done them up themselves to find as teams. They normally come out in red and blue and they were just in the general starter packs. That's your last one, the Scarecrow. I like this one actually. He's got more personality than the rest. Look at his hair. He's got really long hair, standing like a scarecrow, which is where he gets that name from. But I tell you what, his hair is just wicked. It's not going to focus. You've got that video spinning around at the same time. So they were all hand painted. That's what they made until they decided, you know what, we need a little bit of a change. We want to make things easier. We want to pre-print our figures in a machine. We don't want women in Kent painting them, even though they did. So they moved on and they went for this very lifeless soul called a zombie. Named so because he has absolutely no life to him. He has no personality. He has no life. But there are people out there that like playing with him. You can get them as well. I've got some up there. I just couldn't be bothered to get one out of the video. You can get them without Subbuteo written around the base as well. I quite like them. I think they've got a nice bit of charm. He's a hand-painted one. But the reason they did them is because they wanted the machine paint them. When this come out, places in the world, Italy, Portugal, didn't like it because it wasn't Subbuteo. So Endilio Parodi, the people that make Zuego, which I never say right, probably said Endilio Parodi wrong as well. The people who like they used to license Subbuteo in Italy and they would distribute it. They did their own base and their own figure because they didn't like that one. This is what's known as a hybrid. Thank you, Hybrid Mountain because you sent me this team as well. This is my brother. I love this team because of the story behind it. You can see that in another video. I might stick a little pin up there in one of the corners so you can see it. But as you can see, it's like a heavyweight figure. Bit stockier, but it's on a lightweight base. So the difference between a lightweight, which you'll see in a minute, and the heavyweight is these are on a peg and these, couldn't put fingers in the way, are on a bar. So you've got a bar and a peg. Simple as that. This didn't last that long. Came out at a similar time to the zombie. Late 70s, didn't last much longer than the 80s. Very hard to get hold of these. But yeah, in Italy, they're probably a lot easier to get hold of. But then, the best figure Subbuteo ever made. And people will argue about this. They'll say, oh, it's the heavyweight. And generally, I'll be offensive towards people. If you're saying that, you're old. Simple as that. I'm 40. I'm probably old as well. You're probably watching this, some like youthful 22-year-old, think you're cool, laughing at me, trying to be down with the kids. People who like the heavyweight are really old. Like OAPs. I'm sorry for everyone I've just offended. I love you all, Subbuteo community. I love you all. But the best figure will always be the lightweight figure. Seriously, it's amazing. Now, you can get hand-painted versions of these, which have charm. They're very similar to the heavyweight paints, but in the 80s and into the 90s, they machine printed them. And just look at the detail on that. The Asics on his shirt printed on. And because of that, the era of Subbuteo from the 80s to the mid-90s, the kits are impeccable. Impeccable. They're the best of the best, in my opinion. Probably going to get loads of comments saying, oh, heavyweights are best. I don't know, many people won't say that about zombies, but heavyweights, they're not as good as these. I'm just saying. As you can see, it's on a peg, not a bar like the other one. Simple, right? Very easy. But then, Subbuteo was sold off to Hasbro in a deal with Monopoly and Cluedo, and it was kind of rejected. But before it was rejected, they changed the base. They changed everything about it. Well, they didn't change everything because the figure remained as he was in the lightweight. But the base changed. So where's my lightweight gone? This is what's known as a Hasbro base. It's one piece. So in this, you've got washer, base, and a disc, right? Same with the other ones as well. This one, he won't come. Oh, I'm making myself look silly now. There we go. Check it out. The figures used to come in the box like that. You had to put them together yourself in the base. The bases are one piece, and they are flatter. If you go to a lot of old rules tournaments, they won't let you play with these because they say they're not real Subbuteo, but they are because they're produced by Subbuteo. So let us play with them. Starting a petition today. But you can see the base. Let's home it up. It's a little bit flatter. Great for a new player. These are great because they're a bit easier to flick straight in the first place. Bowl bases, I'm rubbish with them. Unless I play with them consistently for about an hour, and by then I want to go home because I'm bored. They're hard. These are easy and a really good alternative. They really are. But again, the detail on the kits. Oh, so good. So good. But then, as I said, Subbuteo hit a decline. Hasbro didn't really want to know about it. And after taking over in 96, they didn't do a lot with it. They really didn't. They sort of let it die. But then, and Dilio Parodi, who I mentioned earlier, who do Zuego now, who did Zuego around this point as well, got a license from Hasbro to produce it. And they sold them through Astro Base. They sold with Subbuteo World. And they did what's known as the black box range. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot of these. Just after the turn of the century, 2003 to 2005, loads of teams produced, really hard to get. It's kind of like a lightweight player, but on a disc base. But again, on a three-piece base, so it's not like the Hasbros, but it's flatter, again, than your traditional sort of bowl base, right? Bit flatter, bit easier to play with. But then, they stopped. I don't know if they lost the license. They stopped. And then we got these photo reels. A return, if you like. I mean, look how big they are compared to them players. But a return to the old sort of celluloid figure. I can't get hold of it. A return to the celluloid figures, right? Bigger. But the difference with these, they have real players on them. So you would open a pack. You could buy packs and be like, surprise on who you got. Cafu on there. I've got Maldini. I've got Bergkamp. I've got Henry. Changed the base completely. So it was a lot more round, a lot taller, but easier to flick still. It would still flick in quite a straight line, but they put this dozy symbol on the bottom. Makes it harder to flick. But they kind of returned to that. That was 2005 time, give or take. And then Subbuteo fell off a cliff. Literally, it fell off. And there was no Subbuteo made. Sad days. Until 2009, when you could buy part work in Italy from a newsstand. And I've done loads of videos on this because I'm trying to collect a lot. I did 8 more in this range to get them. The La Legenda range. For people in England, you'll understand. You know, like when you buy a magazine, you pay £1 for the first issue and then you pay like £20 for the next issue and you build like a James Bond car or something like that. That sort of thing. I don't know if you have that in the rest of the world. Obviously in Italy they do, because you did it with Subbuteo. But you'd get a team and you get a bit of a fence and stuff like that. But mainly it was the teams. Loads of teams were produced in this range. 2009. I don't know how long the range lasted. Probably went on for about a year or so. But the La Legenda range is absolutely iconic. Look at the detail on these. They are machine printed. They're based on a lightweight. So you've got your peg. Very, very light. Lighter than a lightweight though. But the figure, I mean, look, let's compare them to a lightweight. Where are you? There you are. Is that it? That's the one. Let's compare. If you compare them bad boys together, unbelievably similar bases. Really similar figures, really similar moulds. And they brought it back. You could get loads of real teams with real licenses. I mean, that's what Inter, Juventus, Lazio, Russia, successful teams. I mean, they're called the Legends. You get a little book with it as well. I've got other videos. Go check one of these things in the corner right now because there'll be a link to one of them. All right. But then that only went on for a couple of years. And then in 2012, huge Subbuteo relaunch. Absolutely huge. Hello, babe. Sorry, slight interruption. Wife's got toothache. But then in 2012, we got the big Subbuteo re-release, which was ruined by my wife taking paracetamol, where we got these figures. Slightly different mould, slightly flatter base, so a lot easier to flick. And everyone hates them because they're not like heavyweights. They're not like lightweights. Honestly, they're great. The detailing on the kits for these, absolutely fantastic. And this gets a lot of stick, right? Everyone goes, oh, that's too flexible. How many Subbuteo figures did we break as kids? Treading on them, right? Or kneeling on them. Boof, over. These are made of a flexible rubber. Oh, my fingernail's in the way. Looks dirty because I've been at work. Look. They're made of a flexible rubber, so you've got less chance of doing it. Perfect for kids to get into the game. That's them. They still make them up until today, I think. It's changed ever so slightly, which you'll see with a different base. So that's 2012 they come out. And then the Italians did the right thing again. They brought out 2 new part work. They brought out the Lalagana Vintage and the Lalagana Platinum. And again, the kits on these, machine printed, look absolutely awesome. I mean, just look at that, Great Britain. That's from the Platinum range. This one is from the Vintage range. Slightly different. They're based on heavyweights, but if you look, the reason I've called them different figures is because the bars are slightly different sizes. The figures themselves are very similar, but the base is ever so different. This one first in 2014, and then this one came in 2018. I tell you what, I just love that. Look at that detailing. It's gorgeous. Who says modern Subbuteo has to be bad? And these aren't quite the wobbly, so if you don't like the wobbly bases, then there you go. You can break one of them all day long. And that kind of brings us up to the modern day. And we all know the modern game, loads of different companies making all these flippy, slippy, slidey bases. Well, Subbuteo did some too. Look how flat that base is. You ain't spinning to win with that one at all. Based on the sort of modern sports base. But again, look. It's got the bendable figure, so you ain't going to break it. I think that's a cracking idea. The kits on these are gorgeous. Absolutely amazing. If you can zoom in, this figure, mint. Absolutely mint. It's on a flat base. So if a kid is wanting to start learning to play and get professional, you might want to yourself. These are a good shout. These were produced in Spain. These were produced in Spain by Netcam or 11 Falls. I can't remember. I think it might have even been both of them. But they are cool. And then we move on to the modern day in 2020, the latest Subbuteo figure, the bendy base. The base is the same, but the figure's changed. I call it, and we haven't really got a name for these yet, but I think we should call these the cartoon base. Because while the kits look good and the 3 lines is printed well, the figures just, compared to, where's that 2012 one? Compared to the 2012 one, he's just a little bit more cartoony, and he's a bit more chunky. I think this should be called the cartoon figure. Yeah. Should we get that going? Let's get it going. We'll call that the cartoon figure. But the best bit about these is, finally, they made available commercially a female version. So there is actually a commercially available female team now. Now, earlier on, I said there was one figure I might not have. There's actually 2. There is another women's figure. It is rare as rocking all shit. You cannot get it for love nor money. I believe it was a 2016 or 2017, 2018... Women's FA Cup final. They did a limited edition box set before they produced these, and they put in an Arsenal and a Chelsea from that final. Rare as anything, goes for a lot of money. For a modern set, it's really, really collectible. I might have missed that one off. But bang! There's your modern female Subbuteo. The most recent and up-to-date figure coming out in 2020. We've come a long way, right? 1947 to 2020. 75, 76 years in the making. Evolution of the Subbuteo figure. Let me know your favourite down in the comments. Let me know what ones you prefer, why you prefer them. Have a go at me for calling you all old if you like heavyweights. Subbuteo, baby. So many different types. I absolutely love it. Now, if you want to know what Subbuteo bases we've got in these boxes, you better subscribe because I'll be back very, very soon unboxing all that. Next video, we're going to talk about the World Cup pitch. Oh, in there, we're going to do that down at the Raz Club. Oh, looking forward to finally flicking on that. Can't wait. But loads of Subbuteo unboxings. In fact, you can see all the boxes. There's episodes galore there. Episodes galore. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. Do what I said. Talk to me in the comments. Come see me on social media. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it interesting. If you've got any other opinions or any facts I missed about bases, again, let me know down in the comments. I'll see you all very soon for more Subbuteo joy. What did I call it in the original episodes? Pure nostalgic joy. It's exactly what it is. As always, peace. Keep on flicking.